Welcome back to Dealmakers Conversations. In this first interview, we sit down with Louis Foreman, founder and CEO of Inventus Partners. COVID, as you're about to find out, hasn't stopped innovation. Louis will explain more. Well, welcome to Dealmakers Conversations. I'm here with Louis Foreman of Inventus Partners. Louis, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. It's great to be with you.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about innovation, IP, crowdfunding, all kinds of great stuff you guys are involved with. So how do innovation and strong IP creates, that good IP strategy create value for companies that are engaged in M&A?
Yeah, well, first it's important to understand, what IP is. IP can be a patent which prevents others from making, using, or selling what you've created. It could be a trademark that identifies your brand. It could be a copyright on original works of art or expression or photography or packaging. Or it could be a trade secret, a secretive way to manufacture or assemble a product that keeps others from, kind of reverse engineering it. And so by having that intellectual property, it's the secret sauce. It's that unfair advantage that you have over the competition that gives you some period of exclusivity where you don't have to worry about someone competing with you directly in what you do. And so it could be from a patent standpoint, it could be from a trademark for your brand, or you came up with 27, original herbs and spices for your fried chicken recipe that people love, and no one else can do it because they haven't figured out what those are.
That makes a lot of sense. Most people don't always think about those key components that make up that IP and protects them as well as creates that value. So is now a good time, while we're all kind of locked down, to be conducting product research and development?
Well, historically, when you look back at major economic upheavals in our nation's history, whether it was the Great Recession, whether it was other economic downturns, there was a corresponding increase in the amount of innovation and new business starts. Part of that is because resources are less expensive. Part of it is because people have time on their hands because maybe they've been laid off from a job or they find themselves in a situation where they want to control their own destiny. But you've got to plant seeds today if you want to have something to harvest tomorrow. And so companies, progressive companies, are utilizing this time during the pandemic to make sure that they've got something in the ground. So in 3 months, 6 months, 3 years, there's something that's sprouting out that they can harvest and sell to their customers.
And how might the CEOs or the entrepreneurs view this time and this opportunity to really create something for innovation, whether it's even IP or just being innovative in their organization?
Well, innovation in general is happening at a much faster pace than it's ever happened in our nation's history. Part of that is because technology is evolving so rapidly, but part of it is that consumers today expect everything to be new and improved. They're no longer satisfied with what they bought the time before. They're always looking for a better experience or a better design or a more thoughtful or efficient way of doing something. And so as a result, big companies need to constantly be innovating, otherwise they're going to lose market share. And the good news for all those entrepreneurs out there is that innovation levels the playing field. It allows the smallest, newest companies to compete with the biggest giants on a level playing field because they can use innovation to level it.
So let me ask this: are you seeing a steady patent activity or stagnant patent activity right now?
Yeah, overall, the patent system is about where it traditionally is. There's an increasing number of patents, which kind of corresponds to the amount of innovation that is happening. But one of the trends that has been observed, in the last couple of years, is the number of patents being filed by companies from outside of the United States has actually grown to be larger than the number of U.S. companies filing for patents in the U.S. patent system. That's a strong indication that the U.S. economy, the market in the U.S., is the market for selling products and services. But it also tells us that competition is now global. Where it used to be U.S. companies competing for U.S. business, now the whole world is competing at this stage.
Now, is that a benefit or is that a potential hindrance to U.S. companies?
Well, I think competition in general makes us all stronger, right? It hones, our skills. It makes us react, and it makes us more competitive in general. But we can no longer just kind of sit back and say, well, I know what my competition, down the street is doing. I'm okay, because you got to be looking, outside of your borders, because the world has gotten a lot smaller. E-commerce has shrunk borders. It's made the world much more manageable and navigatable. And today, it's very likely that your competition may be on the other side of the world, and they're still shipping directly to your customer.
So let me ask this then, question I've got around capital flow. I know you work with your clients, companies in a lot of different ways around raising capital. Are entrepreneurs still able to effectively raise capital right now if they've got good ideas?
Well, in general, capitalism is wonderful because it allows the flow of capital to businesses that can generate an economic return. And so, I do talk with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of inventors about the woes they suffer from, that they can't seem to raise money. They can't find angels. Maybe there's just not enough liquidity out there in the marketplace. And what I'm really hearing them tell me is that they're not doing a very effective job of explaining how they're going to generate a return on that investment. Because as I mentioned, the beauty of capitalism is that greed is good, right? It's kind of channeling my inner Gordon Gekko from Wall Street, in that if you can demonstrate that an economic return can be generated, you will always find the capital to back that idea. You just got to think, from the investor's perspective, what is going to provide enough reward to justify the risk they're taking on.
That makes sense. Let me ask this then. You've had 15 clients that have been on Shark Tank thus far, maybe more since the last time you and I chatted. What are some of the commonalities among them that's led to their success in developing new products and services for sale?
Yeah, we're really pleased and proud of the companies that we've worked with that have gone on Shark Tank. But in reality, we've worked on over 2,000 consumer products. We've launched over 2,000 Kickstarter campaigns. So we're really active in the startup community and launching new products. And the consistent element amongst all of those is that the product has to be unique. There's got to be something about the product that makes a customer want to buy it, because the reality is everything that we need as a society already exists. Any product that you as a new business or an existing business creates is a replacement to something they're already buying. And so it's not really about convincing someone to try your product. It's about convincing them to not buy something that they're already comfortable with. That's a real challenge. And so the good news is that retailers have made it a whole lot easier for consumers to try new things, because retailers obviously will take products back if you're not satisfied with it. And so they've given the customer kind of the permission to try new products, new brands, new experiences, knowing that there's very little risk associated with trying those. But we as manufacturers, we as entrepreneurial companies, have to dazzle our customers today. We've got to give them a reason not only to try it, but to keep it.
So Louis, that said, where do you see the opportunities headed into 2021? What hot industries or topics or products or services you're seeing that we should pay attention to?
Yeah, new opportunities are being created every single day. Some of it is related to the pandemic. Behaviors are changing. There are going to be new opportunities to launch new products and services. Obviously, delivery-related businesses are hot right now. Anything that reduces the amount of, exposure, face-to-face exposure has been, really ramping up in just recent months. But there's going to be changes in the way we work and the way we, recreate and the way we travel. And all of these are going to be leveraged by smart entrepreneurs to figure out a way to make the process better and safer, and hopefully generate a profit in the process.
Well, we always look for the positive in strange times, and it sounds like there's going to be some interesting pivot points and changes moving forward. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I have no doubt, that innovators and entrepreneurs will not only get us through this pandemic, but will make us a better country afterwards.
So excellent. So Louis, thank you so much for sitting down with us at Dealmakers.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you, Lewis. Next up, we sit down with Jeff Dudan, co-founder of Mobot and AdvantaClean. He shares his thoughts on serial entrepreneurship. Should be good. So welcome to Dealmakers Conversations. I'm here with Jeff Dudan, founder of AdvantaClean, a serial entrepreneur and co-founder of Mobot. Jeff, thanks for joining us today.
Excited to be here, Dustin.
Excellent. So Jeff, tell us first about the most recent initiative you're part of and how it came about.
Most recently, I've started with a partner, a franchise sales organization. And in building AdvantaClean to 230 locations, I developed an appreciation for the franchise sales side of the business, understanding how difficult it can be for brands to have quality and consistent franchise awards. And I was attracted to the opportunity because it would give me the vision into emerging brands or established brands, and I could evaluate these brands possibly for investment or possibly for the opportunity to help them build their company in a responsible way and find a way to help them get it sold.
Excellent. Thank you. So, as you look at these kind of opportunities, Jeff, what criteria do you use to evaluate the business opportunities for either new investments or even some of the startups you've been part of?
Right. So first of all, I always ask myself a couple of questions. The first one's around market opportunity. Who is the customer? And what is the problem that is solved? And once you understand who the customer is, you can assess the size of the market and the accessibility of those people. And the other one is you assess the exit strategy. And I ask that question by asking, who is the natural owner for this business? Most businesses are started by people or families or some sort of founders, but typically along the way, there's a better natural owner. So I try to assess that from the beginning. A couple other things I like to look for in brands: inspired leadership. If we're going to be partnering with a founder, are they authentic in the space, and how will they grow with the business? How do we assess their ability to change and grow over time to meet the demands of a growing business? And then ultimately, I operate in the franchise space. What are the unit economics? If I can find a business that does well at the unit level, I can always fix the business opportunities that are needed to help the business scale.
Getting a little bit more granular, what elements of a potential investment attract you most? And, along those lines, are there similar traits or attributes in the deals, or do they differ from opportunity to opportunity?
Right now, I like to look at service businesses that don't have any particular sunset. They can be multi-generational. Some of these service brands have been around for 50, 60, 70 years, and they're going to continue to be relevant, serving customers. Recurrence in revenue is always a plus. And what is the associated margin with that recurrence? And then white space. Is it a brand that has the opportunity to be one of the first few in a specific niche? Is there not only white space in terms of territory, meaning available cities, towns, markets to be sold and expanded into, but also white space in terms of, is this an industry that's currently served by mom and pops that a franchise system can better address the needs of those consumers?
Those are some great things to be looking at. In your background, you played sports in college. And, when I've talked to many athletes as they've moved into the boardroom, there are some very similar traits they learned as part of a team or not in the field. What have you been able to translate from that sports realm effectively into the boardroom?
Interestingly enough, my first book out, which is titled The Business Athlete's Regimen for a Great Life Through Better Decision. And I make the parallel between business and sports and the intentionality of training that goes into building yourself as a business person and creating wisdom over time so that you can better make decisions. The probability, no decisions that you're going to make in business are 100%, and anything can go to zero. So your batting average over time and in your decisions and the probabilities of outcomes really comes back to your discernment. So if you want to build discernment and you want to build great decision making, what are the things that you should be thinking about if you're a young person in business? How do you train yourself? If you want to be a better basketball player, you say, well, I'm going to work on my left-hand dribble and my footwork and all these other things. But if you want to be a business athlete and you want to get better and from an intentional perspective, what are the things that you work on? So I like grit matters, your persistence matters in addition to your intentional training. And I particularly like getting a team inspired around an outcome and building a great culture. So those are the things that I like to focus on, and things that people that have been in the locker room can translate to the boardroom well.
You mentioned perseverance. Is that a trait that you look for when you are partnering with entrepreneurs to grow their companies?
Oh, I think we all do. Everything takes 10 times as much as you thought it would. There's no linear path to the top. It's a fragmented, craggy, hand over hand climb. You're getting knocked back sometimes. So there has to be no quit, and there is no I in team, but there is one in fired. But there is one in quit. You can't have quit in people either. So looking for people that really can persist through anything, and that once they commit to something, they're going to follow it through to the end, no matter what it takes.
That's great stuff and great answer, and things for people to think about. You mentioned, growing Advanta Clean. A lot of folks who come to our deal makers conferences, a lot of these business owners, operators are trying to figure out how do they know when it's time to sell. And you have been through several different sales. How did you know you were ready to sell those previous companies?
In our first business, Advanta Clean, it wasn't clear when we started the business that we were building it to sell, but certainly the last 4 years, we were very intentional about the staff that we brought in, the leadership, making the business ready to transition in a way that we were wanting it to transition in terms of whether we had to go with the business or not go with the business. And then from the perspective of when, it's you're trying to just really time the top of the market. And I think if there's a confluence of factors. It might be where you are personally as a business owner. It might be, do you have the resources that you need to go to the next level? In a way, you could ask yourself, is this decision I'm making the best decision for the families that I'm responsible for? If it's a franchise network, or the franchise owner is going to be able to get more resources and more growth opportunities, more national accounts, more customer acquisition technology, whatever it is, from maybe joining a group or a bigger brand. But ultimately, you never know. And if there's an opportunity for you to transfer a business and take a certain amount of capital off the table and it to be a great outcome, then the advice that I've been given is, if those opportunities come up, they don't last forever, and they're not always there. So if it looks good and it looks good enough, take the deal.
That's a good point. I've talked to a number of people who have said they've tried to run the company as though it was for sale prior to going to market. Did you approach it that way, or are you approaching your new companies that way?
More so now than before, but I think that's the evolution of maybe a more enlightened business owner, and also understanding that creation of value has certain specific elements to it, and now understanding what it looks like all the way through transaction, bringing those elements, putting them together more quickly, and building a business that has all of the features that somebody who's going to acquire a business is going to want. But it comes right back down to running a good quality operation and putting the fundamentals in place, building a powerful culture. Today, a culture is an incredible asset in the marketplace. It used to be that your brand was what the marketing team told the world that you were, what you stood for, and your culture was that kind of thing that nobody knew about, and it was you had to talk to somebody who worked there to get it. But culture and brand have intertwined today, and a good culture is known through social media, through the acts of the company, through what the employees say about it, through how the customers are handled. The feedback is immediate to the marketplace on how you handle those situations. So if you have a powerful culture and you're well led, like so many companies are out there, then it can be a powerful asset, and it can really be a factor in your value.
Deals don't always close and come together smooth. There's always bumps along the way. I mean, I've talked to entrepreneurs that have said they've had to come back to the table 5-6 different times with deals that they thought were dead and resuscitated from the dead before they closed. Talk about AdvantaClean. Were there challenges that cropped up during the negotiations or pre-close? And if so, what did you do to overcome them?
Fortunately, it was a very smooth deal, and I attribute that to we had great representation with Pat Gallagher with Boxwood Partners. They did an amazing job, and I highly suspect that if things came up that were threatening to the deal, that I might not have heard about them. So he did a good job to deal with those issues and to really push the envelope where he felt he could, and then come back to me in areas where he wanted my advice on how to deal with something. There was an issue during the course of the deal about some leakage in terms of information. You can only keep it quiet for so long. And somehow through some channel, we did have a little bit of a confidentiality break, but it didn't really impact the deal. So yeah, we were very fortunate. And there wasn't any time other than waiting for the offers to come in and the LOIs to come in and see where the value was going to be. So that was the only time that I remember thinking, how is this actually going to shake out? But other than that, it went very well.
That's good to hear. So Jeff, as we wrap up, my last question to you, and it's something that everybody answers this a little bit differently. What part of the deal making do you enjoy the most, and which part do you enjoy the least?
I like the team building. I like getting the part of deal making that I like is I like the build and getting the right players in who are at just the right point in their career where we can give them the next level opportunity of a lifetime, so that when people come and look at a business that they're looking at it and saying, wow, this is the right team. These people have just the right experience. They're just the right point in their career where this has been the opportunity that they would have that they would be looking for. They're likely to want to continue the business and finish what they started. So I think part of building a business for sale is getting the right people in there. They got to have the right balance of the experience and the credibility, and then also they've got to have that upside where they're going to it's really good opportunity for them. So that's the part I like about it. And when you have a team that you can be proud of, and you have a business that's performing, and all of the customer validation and the delivery of the product is right, it's just a beautiful thing. And it makes it kind of a no-brainer because you're never worried about where people are going to look and what they're going to find.
Thank you. Is there anything that you like maybe on the least side of things that you leave to others?
No, I don't think so. It's all, everybody has their job and we all have our strengths. So what I would encourage you to do is make sure that you're properly represented, that you have great finance people involved in the deal, because that's where it always begins and ends, is inside of those numbers. And just don't never let them see you sweat.
Excellent. Well, Jeff, thanks for sitting down with us at the Dealmakers Conference. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Enjoying it.